to ask us to serve so that we can start this process while we are still eating. Kindly allow me to invite the guests on the high table. Please serve food. Then after the high table serves, the guys on the front row serve your food, and then the guys on the last row. Thank you. Let's give them a few minutes.
I hope it's still
Hello everyone. Hello everyone. At this point I want to invite Mark King Masai to pray for the meals, please, before we start.
Thank you.
Let's respect this, please.
Oh Lord, thank you for this afternoon that we all gathered here. We pray that you be in the presence of this meeting, that you guide us, and for what we are just about to receive, we pray that you bless it. Amen.
Thank you so much, Martin, for that. Now I want to invite the Editors Guild President, Mr. Churchill Otieno, to start us off. Karibu, Mr. President.
I struggled with bottle of water.
The Honorable Chief Justice Martha Gomez, the Deputy Chief Justice, Justice Benaula, Supreme Court, friends from the Judiciary, Distinguished editors present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning once more. I was checking whether we are being made to compete with the food. Looks like I still have some attention. Thank you very much. This is the first press club this year, and we are honored to host, have the CJ speak to us today. Not just because it's the first press club this year, but because it reminds us of the revival of the press clubs in 2018. Because when we revived this series of this platform in 2018, our first guest then was the CJ then, the Honorable David Barada. So, CJ, it's an honor that you could find time to share with the editors of Kenya on matters of interest to the country. And indeed, in an election year, we must all agree that there are many, many such matters for us to discuss. And as Gilo said, the media is an institution of public accountability, much in the same way that the judiciary is. So we might have different methods, different approaches, but at the end of the day, we exist to serve the people. And when we do that, I think justice is served, not just served, but also seen to be served. Two critical values or pillars drive the editor's bill. The first one is that we stand for excellence in journalism. So whatever we do, whoever we engage with, the discussions we take, at the end of the day, at the foundational level, are intended to find out ways in which we can do journalism better. Not for ourselves, but for our people. The second one is that we stand for media freedom. Kenya is a democracy, and no democracy thrives unless there is independent journalism. And we believe that Kenya's democracy can only thrive in as far as our journalism is independent and accountable. The Press Club is a platform for editors to hear back from newsmakers, which the Judiciary is one, and Madam J. one. And for newsmakers to openly raise issues with the news media within the confines of the public interest. My role here really, as I welcome you, is to lay the rules to follow in the Press Club. And it's a simple rule, it's just one rule, it's a very simple one. And it goes, we discuss openly, robustly, and with decorum. Full stop. Yeah. But given that we are facing the 2022 general election, we all accept that it is a key exercise for the judiciary and for the news media. As journalists, we are keen to hear from the judiciary on how it intends to exercise its mandate in a way that benefits the Kenyan voter, taking into account any lessons from previous elections. But also, as we do that, we have some concerns, especially when it comes to matters of media and its nexus to the judiciary. The Guild is always looking for quality partnerships, and it works to promote excellence in journalism. Opportunity to collaborate with the Judiciary Training Institute. And a few months ago, I heard that it's now an academy. Yes. Such opportunity will help enhance our court reporting. And we are very, very keenly interested in how our two entities will find ways to collaborate. Because out of that collaboration, we think there will be better quality in terms of court reporting. We expect that such partnership will also lead to the judiciary having a better understanding of the media and its role in society. We have seen way too many instances where the media is defined narrowly as businesses. And when this happens, it completely marginalizes the public interest purpose that the news media must serve. One key area that manifests is in the area of matters and cases around defamation. Yeah. We find a lack of coherence in the decisions that courts make when it comes to those matters. And sometimes we wonder, how is it that some magistrates routinely win higher awards in defamation matters? And sometimes, in fact, almost in all instances, those awards are even higher than what former CJs have won in similar cases. Sometimes they go get as much as double some of the former CJs in court. I think we have done some analysis and we're happy to share, but I'm sure that the Academy is also capable of doing that analysis. We think these are a huge matter of public interest, not just as a shellfish player in the media space, but if we recognize that the media is important to our public, to our society, then diversity in media is a key notion, if you like. Sometimes these awards push some of the media entities to the cliff. And if media houses close, fine, some of the errant players may have been shut down, but the public also possibly would suffer. So a fair balance, I think, would be useful for everybody. When I come to elections, the editors of Kenya and journalists at large stand for fairness and objective reporting. Our newsrooms and the various media associations are hard at work to find innovative ways that work in the year 2022 to ensure we deliver that fairness and objectivity in elections. And that's a commitment we make to you as friends in the judiciary, but to the larger Kenyan public, because it goes to the very core of why the media exists. But I must say, because media performance is a fairly public matter, and as we stated today, there are critical issues around media in discussion in the public platforms. We are very concerned about what seems to be overreach by some forces outside newsrooms, seeking to influence the editorial space. This concern rises manifold when such forces turn out to be state agencies. And the reason it rises is because a keen reading of our Constitution clearly bars the state from tampering with any matters content and matters editorial. And it's an express disbanded by Chapter 33. I think the chapter is very, very plain, and anybody who can read English will take the understanding. But if I can just quote Chapter 2A, which says that the state shall not exercise control over or interfere with any person engaged in broadcasting, in the production or circulation of any publication, or the dissemination of information by any medium. So when we see public notices by state agencies asking journalists to resign, to leave their jobs, it boards very, very concerning issues for us. And we ask ourselves, why would state agencies want to be the HR departments of media houses? We believe that newsrooms must be left to editors, and where any individual journalist runs afoul of the code of ethics or of the law, those matters should be adjudicated on their merit before competent entities. Indeed, we have the Media Competence Commission, specially set up for this kind of issues. A key concern for us as we go into the election, and we take a fairly strong view, given recent history of state attempts to manipulate media in the recent elections. And we call on all media friends, all friends of democracy, to help us in remaining vigilant, so as we secure that space, not for ourselves, but for the larger Kenyan public, so as to then ensure that we can afford them access to critical information on the election. Ladies and gentlemen, Madam CJ, that those many remarks, I welcome you. Please share with us a meal, but also we look forward to your remarks and eventually get you. Thank you, I'm very sorry.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Now, I want to invite Mr. Linus Kekai, who is a head member, to address the club. Karibu, Mr. Kekai.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gilo. Thank you very much, Gilo. The Honorable Chief Justice, Madakome, the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice, Philomena Milu, the Honorable Justice, Renaula. It's a pleasure to have you in our midst today. And Honorable Kome, in about 6 days from today, if my math is correct, it will be exactly 9 months since you assumed office as the 15th Chief Justice of Kenya. So at only 9 months, I think congratulations are still in order. And for those of us who joined the media world in the late 90s, and there are quite a number of us, we do lay claim to some institutional knowledge of your journey, CJ, from your days in FIDA, and also in the trenches of the struggle of democratic reforms. That, of course, we all know started in the 90s, culminated in the 92 election, and then now consolidation in the later decades. Allow me to make some observations from a media point of view and hopefully provoke some thoughts with regard to the theme of the day towards free and fair elections, efficiency and accountability in the judiciary. I will start by saying elections in Kenya are structured both physically and figuratively as a multifaceted contest. It first starts as a contest between one candidate and another, but then quickly graduates to a contest between the tribe of that candidate and the tribe of the opponent. Then it further mutates into a contest between ethnic groups allied to the tribe of the candidate and the block of tribes supporting the opponent. And as demonstrated on various occasions, elections in Kenya can also degenerate into a contest between the law and anarchy, and even worse, a contest between life and death. But then there is one constant about elections in Kenya. Everyone always looks forward to them. Every Kenyan looks forward to elections. Kenyans love elections, even if they actually hate them. I know this is quite an oxymoron, but in my view, it is another of Kenya's peculiar and enduring realities. This indeed is the reason we feel compelled as media and the judiciary to sit here today and think, work, and hope towards a free and fair election in August. There is another constant that we must also admit about Kenyan elections. The voting process, that is the exercise of lining up, picking the ballot papers, and casting them in ballot boxes, has unfailingly been smooth, orderly, and peaceful. We all know this for a fact about just nearly every election, every general election we've had since 1992. So, in this very early age and early stage of our conversation, we must acquit the Kenyan voter. He is innocent. The Kenyan voter is peaceful, dutiful, and devoted to his or her bit of this exercise called the general election. Then comes the next constant that must be admitted about elections in Kenya. Trouble starts and ends with the tallying and transmission of election results. This is the central dilemma of the Kenyan elections and the assured standing invitation for the intervention of the judiciary. But this invitation to the judiciary has in itself been a long journey whose significance to the country and the institution should not be missed. Until the promulgation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the judiciary of Kenya was not considered a fair arbiter of electoral disputes. Before 2010, the corridors of our courts were littered with failed petitions and flooded with tears of petitioners who could not get justice because those times could not simply allow it any other way. And so, we must celebrate the gains occasioned by the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and in particular, Article 160, Sub-Article 1, that guarantees the institutional independence of the judiciary through that solemn instruction that the judiciary shall only be subject to the Constitution and the law, and not by any stretch to the control of any person or authority. The same Constitution, that very same Constitution of Kenya 2010, guarantees the decisional independence of members of the judiciary in ways unimaginable in the decades preceding 2010. Indeed, I read somewhere, but without verification, that there was a judge that in the 80s, I think somewhere 89, got rid of the entire Bill of Rights in his ruling. So it's a he. Now, those are the decades preceding 2010. Now, in 2017, the judiciary made its most consequential intervention ever in matters relating to elections in Kenya. Odinga and another, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, and two others will for many years, tens, maybe hundreds, maybe many more, be a basis of healthy and rigorous jurisprudential discourse and electoral reference in Kenya. The decision was predictably received along the same patterns of political fault lines that divide our country, and judges took quite a hit, bearing more than their fair share of the burden after their decision. But one must rise above the din of political rupture and ethnic competition to see the decision of the Supreme Court of 2017 for the true value it brought to the future of our democracy and the place of rule of law in Kenya. For the judiciary, that had long been criticized for literally sharing the bench with the executive. The judgment in the Presidential Petition number 1 of 2017 is nothing short of a liberation charter. Judges placed rule of law, both substantive and procedural, above the usual political considerations. In 2017, the Supreme Court found the courage that it had lacked in 2013 to decisively confront the menace of manipulation of election results in Kenya. The judges very boldly concluded that the IEBC engaged in various irregularities and illegalities in the transmission of results and other malpractices that affected the integrity of the law. The infamous servers that were never opened despite instructions of the Supreme Court, those servers, wherever they are, constitute corpus delicti in the most absolute terms. That bold and obviously difficult declaration that, quote, the presidential election held on the 8th of August 2017 was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution and the applicable law, rendering the declared results invalid, null, and void, should not be seen through the lenses of our narrow winner-loser mentality and worldview, but through the broad context of the country's unending quest for free, fair, credible, and verifiable elections. As we head to the August polls, we note and appreciate that the Honorable Chief Justice and her team have placed the judiciary on standby to manage any dispute arising at any level of the elections to be held in August. Chief Justice, as you prepare to do that, there are contextual matters that are obviously drawing some curious concern. First, the unresolved, or should I say the incomplete issue of appointment of judges by President Kenyatta, as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, and as reiterated by the Chief Justice herself, continues to put to test the principle of trias polita and the doctrine of separation of powers as earnestly aspired by Article 166 of our Constitution. This issue, we know, has been one of the weightiest on your desk, and I know it's not even 9 months yet. We are curious, how will this play out in the end, and what will the aftermath look like, especially in relation to our aspirations for a system of checks and balances instructed by the Constitution. We're looking forward to your thoughts on this. Secondly, the legal field has for the last 4 years or so been littered with cases of executive defiance of court orders. Court orders have been defied so blatantly, in some cases, in a way that pushes Kenya very close to that society without law, spoken of by Thomas Hobbes, where life was short, brutish, and nasty. Defiance of court orders continue to shake the pillars of our justice system and the whole ecosystem that rests on the rule of law. And as L.J. Clyde noted in Johnson v. Grant, defiance of court orders does more than stripping the court of its dignity. Contempt of court challenges the very fundamental supremacy of the law. Our own Justice George Odunga in Judicial Service Commission versus Speaker of the National Assembly and the Attorney General made what I sadly want to call a futile reference to Article 10 of the Constitution, reminding all, especially state officers, that the rule of law is actually listed as one of our national values and principles of governance. Honorable Chief Justice, we're looking forward to your take of the state of the rule of law. Thirdly, a precedent was written on the 1st of September 2017 when Supreme Court judges by a majority bravely annulled a presidential election that before them fell short of the legal and constitutional standards of verifiability. I personally consider the 2017 landmark judgment Kenya's version of Roe v. Wade in the United States, not in substance, but in principle. I choose to compare it to Roe v. Wade and not Bush versus Gore of 2000, because quite frankly, as Kenyans, we've had more than one version of our own George Bush versus Al Gore. Let me remind you of Harun Mwau in the foolscaps in 1993. Let me remind you of Kenneth Matiba in the petition signature of 1993. And let me remind you, of course, of Mwai Kibaki, who could not get to serve President Moi personally in 1998. Those to me, are our versions of Bush versus Gore. In Odinga v. IEBC of 2017, the Supreme Court walked away from technicalities, folded its sleeves, and asked the IEBC to account for the process of reaching the supposed outcome of the 2017 election. In America, way back in 1973, Roe v. Wade divided the country into those who believed in an unborn child's right to life and those who believed in a woman's right to choose. In 2017 here in Kenya, Odinga v. IEBC and two others divided the country into those who believed in the numbers given as the outcome of the election and those who believe in the process of reaching the numbers given as the outcome of the election. In the same way, there has been a race to overturn Roe v. Wade. We are waiting to see whether in Kenya there will be a race to overturn Odinga v. IEBC 2017. In conclusion, Madam President of the Supreme Court, I want to add to two logistical issues related to what the President of the Kenya Editors Guild referred to in relation to how the media and the judiciary should cooperate for the 2022 election. In 2013 and in 2017, Madam President, there were two biggest television shows in this country. The first one was the presidential debate with a lot of viewers. And the second one, in both cases, was the Supreme Court hearing of the presidential petitions. Those are the two big shows, the two biggest shows on television during election years. I don't know how 2022 will go, but in the same way you are preparing for the rest of the aspects of the election, I urge you to prepare for the biggest television show as well in an election year, which is the Supreme Court hearing. Why I raise this is because there are logistical issues involved, practical issues involved. And we've shared this a number of times with teams from the judiciary because we've had cases like that, including the recent PBI case, so that the setup of the court should factor in television coverage. From sound to cameras, we are going to submit this as a problem the judiciary should also think about, that this is a television event. It's going to be televised, so we must together worry about the quality of the sound, worry about the position of the cameras, and worry about the quality of the entire production. Why this is important, Chief Justice, is because Kenyans are now into the tradition of following the big events on television very, very dutifully and very, very keenly. This is why it's so important, especially in this era of COVID restrictions, to pay attention to the quality of the television feed that comes out of the judiciary cases. Starting, of course, and we would like to already ask that those measures be taken when the ruling, when the judgment on the BBI case comes up, even as we wait for the 2022 elections coverage. We want to say thank you for the past cooperation in terms of allowing media to access these locations. And when I talk of television, I don't mean to exclude photography, which is a very, very big part of this. I don't mean to exclude print journalism, because it is very, very important that journalists be physically present to record the events in traditions we all understand, which is notebook first. On that note, I thank you very much, and I humbly, my leadership, conclude my submission here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bukai. Allow me to brag a bit. We are very few as pastoralists in this town. And the next guest is a pastoralist, a fellow pastoralist, a brilliant legal mind, a judge who is remembered for making the Constitutional Court what it is right now, the youngest Supreme Court judge, Mr. Justice Isaac Lenola. Karibu, my
My Lady Chief Justice, my Lady Deputy Chief Justice, the President of KEG, and KEG is not the beer, it is the Editors Guild, immediate past President, my brother Linus Kakai, members of the Council and members of the Guild. Thank you very much for inviting us to this very important function. And I stand here, but thank you, Gilo. We have quorum from the north as we speak. So don't think we are just a minority anymore. Two are enough to form quorum. I stand as the chairman of the Communication Advisory Committee of the Judiciary, which is the link between the judiciary and the media. And when I was called yesterday to come and join you in this forum, I was asked to respond to any questions that may be raised by prior speakers and now the President and immediate past President. Before I do so, and before I invite the Deputy Chief Justice to invite the Chief Justice, let me say three quick things which came to my mind when I received the invitation. The first is to thank you, the media, for the work that you do. Oftentimes, when we look at professions, we look at what we do in this country, we directly call you the fourth state, as if what you do is peripheral, it's inconsequential. But we know that in any democracy today, the media is an amazingly strong watchdog for good governance in any country. And so we thank you for the work you do, and take it from us in the judiciary, we appreciate you. Number two, while we have received a number of concerns from the President and immediate past President, I will only address initially three issues which are concerns from our part. Number one is objectivity in reporting. The judiciary suffers a lot from this because when you report in a manner that does not express what a judge or magistrate has said, the result is that the public out there gets the wrong information and is not able to relate with the decision made. So be objective even as you balance what you report. Number two, we must recall the history of both the judiciary and the media in the 2007-2008 election. Both the media and the judiciary suffered attacks from the political class because one, they said the media was not objective, and two, the judiciary had no capacity, had no independence, had a bias towards certain sides, and therefore no case could be brought to court. And we fought as a people. So that even as we go to 2022, we as a judiciary and you as a media must remember that sad history and do our work in a manner that does not either create the flare of violence nor create perceptions of bias on your part, and we shall do our best to not to have that perception. Number three, when I was at the High Court, and I was able to relate with Gilo, Roslyn, Jen Chapia, and others, I realized that there was no mode of communication between our court reporters and the judiciary. And yet our communication department is extricated from what I do as a judge. So they wouldn't even know what I wrote, what I delivered this morning. And that was the reason I thought that we should create the Kenya Court Reporters Association. And the intention was that that Court Reporters Association will also have a connectivity with the Judicial Training Institute then, now the Kenya Judicial Academy, where court reporters can get some training in law. And now that we have an academy which is going to offer at some point diplomas and degrees, why don't we begin a conversation today where journalists who do court reporting can be trained and even attain diplomas in law? Because that is a manner in which we can have you have the journalistic training, but because you're doing a lot of legalese, you have basic training in law. So when I spoke to one of the members this morning on my way here, he said, tuko na shida kindani ndani, which means that internally there are misukosuko. Very Kenyan thing. You form an association with a good idea, but local politics enters. Tribal politics too. So, Mr. President, I am now, because you know I'm a judge, I do not beg you to do. I now direct you to do. To call upon these members, these court reporters from all the media houses, tell them to revive that association. I am the patron. I am available anytime to have a meeting with them and to talk to JTA, KJA, and Dr. Frida is here from the Academy, Judicial Academy. We can create a curriculum immediately where we can train our colleagues in the media. The Chief Justice has a robust speech, I'm sure, but let me, Chief Justice, because that was also supposed to do, let me respond some of the issues raised by both Churchill and Nina Kaikai. The first one is on the question of independence of the media and independence of the judiciary. We don't need to be told more than you did. It is our duty to remain independent against all forces. So both you and ourselves must remain independent, and that's all we can do. Number two, on the defamation cases that Churchill raised, those from the Standard Media Group will remember that about 10 years ago, I held a series of trainings in this hotel. And I spoke to you about defamation. And after those trainings, the number of mistakes made by journalists telling towards defamation reduced in the Standard Media House. You, Gilo, you must remember that at the start, I had conversations with William Pike and Paul Ilado on how to manage your conversation around defamation. But now, because we have a brave new media, like the brave new bar, I'm seeing more and more mistakes being made by untrained journalists in the area of defamation. Mr. President, once again, why don't you begin a conversation where judges, magistrates can have a conversation with you and train you on the rules of defamation, and then we're able to relate at a more formal professional level. Number two, again, I will request you, Mr. President, to contact Frida Gideon, and so that when we have the judges colloquium, and we have many meetings of all the courts, especially the High Court, and the magistracy. We can have a speech by you, by Linus, by whoever else, where you can raise your concerns, so that you can tell us, what is this that we are doing that you think that the judgments are overly exorbitant? If you remember, many years ago, at one point the judgments were capped at 30 million after the Biwott case. When we had the Gisheru case, they came down to 10 million. When I did the Obure case, I did 15 million. I think we need to have that conversation with you where you can tell us, this is the analysis we have had, there is no consistency. Incoherence in judgments is unfair to the people we serve, and we as the judiciary must be told you are being unfair. So let's have that conversation. And lastly, please share the analysis you have with the Honorable the Chief Justice, so that internally we can have that conversation. Linus, you raised a question of, I think it was Churchill, overreaching. One of the threats to any democracy is where the media and the judiciary receive these things. While the judiciary has been spoken about for years on end about corruption, what about yourselves? Don't journalists receive brown envelopes? Don't media houses receive money to do certain stories in a particular way? Those who know about the case I threatened to file against the Standard, but which the Deputy Chief Justice finally filed, will remember the story. And those in Star and the Nation will remember how that guy brought that fake story that Isaac Lenaola of Secretary Village, was communicating with people on the other side during the petition. It was very offensive, but a story was read by the Standard. It was offensive to me as an intellectual and as a judge, and I took action. So you too must retain that independence and avoid the temptation to be told, want to fix Lenaola, so you run a story on page 3. Thank God Standard read an apology on page 1. And I stand with my integrity. So I think we need to be careful also. We don't give ourselves the opportunity for those people to reach out to us. That is both for us as judges and for you as the media. And of course, use the Media Council and other mechanisms to punish those who are errant. Linus, the 2013 decision of the Supreme Court and the two 2017 decisions speak for themselves. And I think we must continue having a conversation with ourselves as a country and how to ensure that the independence of institutions that we hold dear should never be compromised, no matter the circumstances. And so those decisions speak for themselves, and we leave it at that. The question of appointment of judges, that's a matter for the Chief Justice as chair of the JSC. Chief Justice, I will leave it to you. But I must speak about defiance of court orders. And on this one, I will not blame even the parties that defy the court orders. I must blame ourselves. We have sufficient mechanisms to punish errant parties. Why are we as judges not punishing parties properly? When I was in the High Court, I did make an order against a certain gentleman of repute. And after that, that gentleman has never spoken about court orders again. So that we ourselves must point fingers at ourselves and say, why don't we punish them? Why are judges fearful of sending people off for contempt of court? So, while you must continue telling us we are doing wrong, while you must continue telling errant parties they are doing wrong, please point fingers at us too. We must confess that. And in all my speeches to my colleagues, I keep saying, do not fear to put anyone in for contempt of court. Even a slap on the wrist is worse than nothing. On the petitions and technicalities, you know, before 2010, the precedent set by the Court of Appeal was that personal service is mandatory. Now, if you're sitting in the High Court, like myself and my sisters, in some station out in Meru or Machakos or Kakamega, you must follow that precedent. But 2010, this constitution says that 159, you shall not use technicalities in doing justice. So any court that uses technicalities now is not only flouting and breaching the Constitution, but should be punished for doing so. Because technicalities are no longer. And we put these things, I was saying, some of you are here. We put this specifically because of those cases, where technicalities were being used to avoid justice. Today, no one can say that I can use a technicality to avoid the justice. Lastly, Chief Justice and colleagues, on the logistical questions, which Linus has raised, I thought to myself that during the BBI hearing, we had a good arrangement in the COVID situation we are in. And should there be any issue, that is my work, and the docket the Chief Justice has given me. If there's an issue around how we handled you as a media during the BBI case, which was, by the way, a test run for us for the big one out during the election. So if there are any issues, Mr. President and your council, let me know. Let the Registrar of the High Court know. Let the Chief Registrar know, and we shall manage the logistics. I didn't see any problem myself. I thought we did well in the last case. So in conclusion, Chief Justice and colleagues, I hope that you shall meet your expectations as a judiciary. I hope that you will meet our expectations as a media. But we are in this situation where we must work together to pen and to spend. So whether you don't like my face, or you like it, or you don't like my face on the headline or in the tree, we have to work together. Whether you like the Chief Justice or not, you must report fairly about the Chief Justice. Whether you don't like Philomena Mbetewa Mwilu, you must report fairly about it. So let us have that respect, that camaraderie, that friendship, that togetherness. And that, the only way we can build our two institutions to the level Kenyans want. As I see it, you know, when Linus was speaking here, and throwing all those Latin phrases and quoting cases, I told myself that going to school of law is a very good thing. And so for those that have aspired to do law, like Rosemary Obala here, umesikia hii lugha wewe? Nimesikia. Sasa unakaa tunde. Those who want to have the feeling of both professions. Lina is a good example. I'm congratulating my brother for that. I thank you all. On that very happy note, I must now take my proper place in the judiciary and humbly call upon the Deputy Chief Justice, the Honorable Philomena Mbetewa Mwilu, to come and make her remarks and invite the Chief Justice. Karibu Deputy Chief Justice.
Now, this is how we do it where I come from. And so it is the Honorable the Chief Justice before the President of the Guild and the rest of us in the House, Honorable Editors, good afternoon. I am glad to be part of the gathering today that creates or continues to build on the partnership between the judiciary and the media. Mine is not to talk, mine is to invite the Honorable the Chief Justice to talk to us. But I have to say one or two things, which is one, on defamation I shall say very little because at a personal level, two of my matters are sub judice, because we will continue to sue you when you become irresponsible and misreport. I don't know what is so difficult about making a verification of a story before you carry it. And so I would urge that we be diligent in the discharge of our duties. You chose this profession, can you do it to the best of the standards of the profession? On the rule of law, I shall say that nobody, at least not to my knowledge, in this country is above the law. And so just do the right thing, and when you don't do the right thing, maybe we should take what the pastoralist says. We force you to obey the law. Because when it comes to these judgments, sisi hatujui watu. We just know the law. Finally, it is one thing to be a professional. It is another to be a good professional. We have all manner of temptations in these jobs. I think it actually falls on me to say that if you can't do it right here, just go and look for an alternative, both for me at the judiciary and for you in the media. It does appear to me that you guys in the media are looking forward to August. I'm not. My experience last time is not anything to look forward to. Although I have to say, it is those things that make us who we are. It is those things that give us the urge to do the right thing. I am not a preacher man or preacher woman, and therefore it's my pleasure, my duty, and my responsibility as your Deputy Chief Justice to invite the Honorable the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya. Where I come from, we stand when the CJ stands. And so I shall ask that we be upstanding to welcome her and to give her a ear. And let's hear what she has to say to us this afternoon. The Honorable the Chief Justice.
Thank you very much, my sister, the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice, my brother Justice Laura, the President of the Editors Guild, the former President, distinguished editors, members of the Judiciary present, and all our friends this afternoon. Good afternoon. My sister, don't harass these people by making them stand. Because we want to keep this friendship. We don't want them to get scared next time we invite them. But allow me really to thank you, the Kenya Editors Guild, for honoring our invitation to enable us really dialogue on our plans that we have put together on deepening access to justice, and also to share with you our preparedness as a judiciary towards the forthcoming 2022 general elections. Allow me also to thank the previous speakers for those inspiring, speeches and words of encouragement and caution on the areas that we need to work on. And I really celebrate the media because you play a critical role in our society to uphold our democracy and to uphold the rule of law. I do not know where we'd be as a country were it not for the very vibrant media that we have had, and also the shepherding by the Editors Guild on putting up standards and reminding journalists what is our true north. Our true north is remaining faithful to our Constitution. So when I look at our guiding principles, there is so much that brings us together as media and the judiciary. I think we share all these principles, especially social justice, and also accessibility and efficiency, transparency and accountability. So there is so much that brings us together and divides us. So for that, We call you our accountability teams, given that our two institutions are intended to serve as checks on the functioning of the state. So when you talk about the threats to your independence, we flinch, because that is what we guard against every day when we wake up. We pinch ourselves and remind ourselves our oath of office to remain and guard our independence most jealously. The two institutions also play a role in society development as we all work towards bringing to the fore the various problems encountered in our society. And we also do the same in nudging the duty bearers, reminding them to work towards the resolution of the problems. Fortunately for us, we are in adjudication. We also remind ourselves we are duty bearers, and therefore we must serve the people diligently, efficiently, and we must always ensure we protect and promote the rule of law and constitutionalism. It is this shared overarching role in the society that will shape and steer the relationship between the judiciary and the media. During my tenure in office as Chief Justice, I was happy to know that you have been counting every day that I've been in this office. Fortunately, I've been doing the same. It's going to be 9 months, and I can assure you, it's like carrying a pregnancy. So on that 9th month, I believe I'll give birth to a bouncing baby. In terms of these principles becoming a reality, and now we start shepherding them. So we'll be together to celebrate the birth of this baby and to see how the baby will work. I therefore extend a hand of partnership to the Editors Guild that we should work together in promoting good governance, the growth of our nascent democracy, and social justice in our country. I take this opportunity also to share the vision of the judiciary with the Editors Guild, because the many questions that were asked, Justice Retaura has answered them very carefully. I will not want to repeat them. So I can tell you of our vision, which is social transformation through access to justice. A vision geared towards attaining outcomes that will improve the judiciary's performance and deepen access to justice to all, especially the vulnerable in the society. You have seen us work with the vulnerable, especially the children. You have seen us try to penetrate the informal sectors to open small claims courts so that people in small businesses living in the informal sectors do not have to walk far to access justice. And that plan will continue. This vision puts people at the center of our service delivery, because we are aiming to develop a people-centered justice system that is focused on people's needs, thus reinforcing the idea of justice as a public service. The vision also provides a roadmap for developing a judicial system that is efficient, accessible, expeditious, fair, and cost-effective. The identified priority areas under the vision include clearing case backlog, improving access to justice by increasing the avenues for accessing justice. You have heard us talk about the multi-door approaches, the alternative justice system that we are piloting in Kajiado, in Isiolo, and so many other places where we empower people to resolve their own disputes. Because if you know how the dispute came about, We also are empowered through training how to resolve those disputes. The court annexed mediation is bearing a lot of fruits, and also the small claims court is part of these processes. And this way, we hope to enhance public confidence in the justice system and improve coordination and synergy of the other actors in the justice system. This one, we are taking a lot of time to understand what is our independence. We understand it very well, it's in the Constitution. But we also realize as a judiciary, we cannot operate as a silo, saying we are independent, when we need to work with others. When we know in delivery of justice, you must connect with others and work as a chain, including this forum we are having. It's about interdependence, it's about sharing, it's about dialogue, because we cannot operate alone. We serve the public, and the service delivery has other actors. Some of the specific strategic interventions and innovations that we are pursuing include ensuring accessibility to courts by having a magistrate court station in every sub-county, and a high court and a court of equal status in every county. We are also hoping to reduce the travel, especially for the pastoralists, to at least less than 100 kilometers to access judicial service. We hope to roll out these small claims courts throughout the country. This is aimed at ensuring that social grievances, especially for the economically vulnerable members of the society, are resolved expeditiously, thus furthering the prospect of peaceful coexistence in vulnerable communities like the slum areas and the informal settlements, where if you host somebody, even 1,000 shillings, that can cost your life. We also hope to ensure that cases are heard and determined expeditiously. Our target is that no case should last more than 3 years in the trial courts and at least 1 year in the appellate courts. We also put a lot of emphasis on anti-corruption and economic crimes cases and commercial disputes to ensure quick resolution of these cases. We, as you know, have embraced technology, and since COVID, we have embraced virtual courts, e-filing, and a case management system that enables us to track cases from filing to completion. We were struggling with technology, and I'm glad we have the chair of our ICT committee, the Honorable Mr. Isaac Winaula. He has so much energy. I think that comes from being a pastoralist. He does more than just being a Supreme Court judge here. He is the chair of ICT, and he has done magic in the last about 2 years that he has been there. We are almost 70% ICT compliant, and we are hoping, especially in Nairobi, we are hoping to cover every region. Also, piggyback on the government's technology apparatus, like Huduma Center. We hope to have our desk at Huduma Center so that members of the public can access judicial services also within those sites. So we are continuing with all these initiatives, and we will be asking that we partner with the media. These are the pains of carrying this baby for 9 months, but now we are able to identify what it is that we need to do. We all have a role to play in the realization of the goal to have an accessible, expeditious, cost-effective, and fair justice. So using the media, we hope you can let people know of all these practices especially allow people to know of the court-annexed mediation, where people solve their own disputes with the help of a mediator, and also about the small claims courts and the alternative justice system. Now I come to the crux of the matter this afternoon, our preparedness for the election. And just like the Deputy Chief Justice has said, she's not looking forward to the August. I'm remaining very optimistic with one colleague in the Supreme Court. And we keep telling one another, he says he's a man of faith, and I say I'm a woman of faith. And we say, let our souls not be troubled. There will be no problem. You know, we are, of course, deluding ourselves. Because we know in Kenya, much as the media said Kenyans like elections, because many will only buy a trouser or a skirt, but the t-shirt and the cape will be provided during this election here in Kenya. But there is also a segment of Kenyans who truly fear elections. Because when our security and stability has been threatened since 1992, it is something to do with elections. That is when we have been pushed almost to the creep. It's because of electoral disputes. So they cause us fear and anxiety. So how do we deal with this fear? Because for those of us who are people of faith, we are told not to fear. And even the whole we take in the office, we are told, whatever we do, we must do it without fear or favor. So this is how we are facing the forthcoming elections in the judiciary without any fear or favor. Telling Kenyans we are prepared to deal with all the disputes that will come, absolutely impartial, dispassionate. Whatever problems they will bring to our courts, will reduce them into constitutional and legal issues.